Hello, welcome to Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray, CPA. My guest today is Janice Carney, and Janice is an attorney with her own law practice, Carney Elder Law, in Saratoga, California. She received her JD or law degree from the University of Santa Clara Law School in 1990, and Janice has been practicing law independently for over 25 years. She has been a certified specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law by the State Bar of California Board of Legal Specialization since 1995. In 2005, Janice became the first certified elder law attorney in Santa Clara County through the National Elder Law Foundation. And she became only the 8th attorney in California to be recognized as a specialist in elder law by the State Bar of California Board of Legal Specialization. Then in 2009, Janice became one of the first accredited attorneys by the Veterans Administration in this area. This interview is the third of a three-part series that we're calling the Elder Law Journey, Elder Care Journey. And if you missed the first two interviews, you can find them online. You go to financialinsiderweekly.com and look under past episodes, and we'll have them posted there. We're discussing pre-planning for long-term care today. And Janice is a California attorney. I'm a California CPA. So some of the rules that we're going to be talking about are going to vary somewhat from state to state. And this is only an introduction to an area that you should be discussing with your own attorney. Okay? Janice, thanks for joining me.
You're so welcome, Mike.
Okay. So, what do you mean by long-term care?
Okay. Well, long-term care...
Can we see our first slide here, please?
Right. So you may be seeing on your screen the Elder Care Journey. This is a pictorial by one of my colleagues out of Illinois. And this is a timeline. From the green at the far left side of your screen is the vigorous, healthy senior, and all the way to the right is post-death. So the first three are usually while you're healthy. Maybe you have a medical condition, you might have some hospitalization. Those are not what I call long-term care yet. Long-term care are probably the next four. It's the area where you're the declining senior, you need some help with your activities of daily living. Mm-hmm. The basics of the ability to feed yourself and dress yourself and basically care for yourself. So the you might have declining mobility, you might have safety issues, you might have falls happening. You may need some in-home assistance, you may need care in assisted living, you might even need care in skilled nursing. Mm-hmm. So those are the levels of care. The bottom of the screen shows the funding and the issues that relate to these levels of care. Okay. So you may, how you're going to be paying for this, whatever you need here. For instance, hospitalization may be your health insurance. Okay. But the long-term care is generally not covered by health insurance. Okay. Sometimes someone might think that their Medicare or their health insurance is going to pay for their nursing home. In fact, it will only pay for a short care in a nursing home, not long-term. And what I mean by this is if someone goes into the hospital and such as they had a fall, broke a hip, or had pneumonia, and they need some care in a nursing home for rehab, to get back on their feet, get strong enough to go back home again, then Medicare is going to cover some of the cost while they're rehabbing. Now, Medicare actually pays 100% of the cost for up to the first 20 days, and then from day 21 to day 100, it will pay part of the cost of care. And you will either have a personal co-payment, or you might have an HMO or a supplemental health insurance that covers that copayment and deductibles for that extra 80 days. In no circumstances is Medicare or your supplemental insurance or your HMO that's covering you because you elected it instead of Medicare going to cover more than 100 days for that medical condition.
Okay, so I think we can take down that slide now, so thank you for that. Okay, so why should I pre-plan for long-term care?
Well, the reality is that seniors are living longer and longer. When I started practice, and you probably can relate to this with your clientele as well, when I started practice, I rarely saw someone in their 90s that was over 90. Now, my oldest clients are 104 plus.
Wow.
So the aging of our population is immense. In the year 2000, there were about 34 million seniors over 65 in America. By the year 2050, that number is going to almost triple. Mm-hmm. So the number of seniors is growing so fast. Everyone, attributes it to the baby boomers moving through, but before that, it's growing as well. So the sheer numbers of people and the age at which how we're moving through the age of the population, the numbers are going to mean that there's more and more people who are going to live longer. In my experience and observation, while we live longer, we don't necessarily live completely independently longer. It was nice fallacy to think that we're going to live until we're at 90 and then at 91 we're going to pass. The reality is that most people need care for a very long period of time. Usually, I think it's probably in the neighborhood of 10 years from the time of the beginning of decline to when someone passes away. Mm-hmm. So there can be faster, and of course there's slower, but we're talking about a transitional or a declining slope. It's not something you come along and you fall off the cliff.
Not a cliff.
Not usually. And those people are the people who might come up with some terminal illness that they are going to die from very quickly. But most of the aggressive illnesses, the cancers, heart attack, the number of people who have bypasses every year, an enormous number. So we're not dying of those quick death kind of illnesses. The illnesses are a long illness with a slower decline and to the end. So this decline period of time is what I call long-term care.
Okay.
And we have a variety of ways and types of care that will be needed during it.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about Medicare. Did you have any other comments about that before we move on? Or?
Well, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that Medicare is your health insurance. Uh-huh. You paid into the Medicare system through FICA during your working years or your spouse's working years. You may be getting it as a spousal benefit. Yes. But it's health insurance that you prepaid for. Uh-huh. Now, that's Part A. You get that without any additional costs. It's going to cover your hospitalization and certain other medical equipment. It also pays for that level of skilled nursing that I talked about, which was short-term, which is while you're rehabbing. That's covered under Part A. Under Part B of Medicare, you pay a premium that's deducted from your Social Security. You almost don't have a choice about this. You sign up for Medicare, and you have that premium deducted. And you get that covers your doctors and certain other kinds of medications if you're in a hospital kind of things. It doesn't cover your prescription medications in the general course. So those are the basics of Medicare. You can choose what we call an Advantage plan, which is Medicare Part C, that will cover your Part A and Part B through an HMO or a PPO. And you oftentimes pay a little bit extra there. And then you have a medical or drug plan,
Right.
which is Medicare Part D now. So all of those are the different plans. Independent insurance has also come in because each of those, especially Part A and Part B, have co-payments and deductibles and limits on what they pay. And so there are supplemental private insurance that you can purchase that will cover, depending on which level of insurance you decide to pick, which will cover the deductibles and co-payments for Part A and Part B. If you have Part C, you don't need those because they're incompatible.
They're included.
It's generally included.
Yeah.
Oftentimes also included in your Part C HMO or PPO is a drug plan. So you oftentimes don't need that. So there's a number of different options and ways people can go about getting their health insurance. But again, this is health insurance. Just like when you were younger and you had your health insurance through your employer to cover your illnesses. It's designed to provide you treatment to help you get well. When you aren't able to get well, when what is going on with you means that you're in this slow decline or fast decline, not medically, but just in care needs, that's not going to be covered by your Medicare or any other kind of health insurance, generally.
Okay. Are there other public benefits that you can use for paying for long-term care?
Sure, you can pay yourself.
That's not a public benefit, that's my pocketbook.
Well, so Medicare is not considered a public benefit. It's health insurance you pay
Right.
for, and
Right.
and so you're getting it. Many people tend to think of it as a public benefit, but in fact it's not. A public benefit is a benefit that if you are in dire need, you can get this benefit. The biggest medical benefit, public benefit provider in California is Medi-Cal.
Okay.
Medi-Cal is California's version of the federal Medicaid program. California just is sort of narcissistic, and we want to call it Medi-Cal.
Okay.
And so that's what we call our program. So Medi-Cal then, and we do have a slide that I think you could put up that is going to show some of the Medi-Cal
got it up.
program. You must be financially needy in order to get it. First off, you have to be either disabled or age 65 or older to get the long-term care program. There is some Medi-Cal program under Obamacare that people who need health insurance can get, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the long-term care program. It's going to pay for care that is not just your medical care. You must need care in the level of care of a skilled nursing facility. In essence, you need a medical condition and or you need a significant cognitive impairment, or you need deficits, substantial deficits in at least 3 of the activities of daily living, which are the ability to feed yourself, dress yourself, bathe yourself, toilet yourself, and transition yourself from a bed to a chair or onto your walker, and to it sort of, you can think of it as mobility, but you don't have to walk, you just have to be able to transition.
Okay.
So if you can't do some of those and you have a financial need, and that's the level of care of a skilled nursing home. So you need to be financially needy, you need the level of care of that. And you, let's talk a little bit about the financial need. I want to explore that. Most people want to know, what am I talking about there?
Okay, do you still need this slide, or?
You don't have to have that, no.
Okay, so please take down the slide.
Down the slide.
Okay.
Okay, for the financial need, generally you're looking at what savings do you have? And they're going to count every kind of savings of whatever kind of asset. So it could be real estate, it could be money in the bank, it can be stocks, an interest in a business, whatever it is. They're going to look at all those assets, and they're going to carve off just a few select assets that they call exempt. The biggest one is our home.
Okay.
And the home is exempt. In California, retirement accounts can be exempt. There's a couple of little issues with that you want to have your attorney, someone's attorney needs to advise them about, but generally that can be exempt. Your one car for a couple, and what I call your stuff, the personal stuff.
Okay.
Those are the major exempt assets. There are a few other ones that go along with that. Everything else is considered countable. Your countable assets, if you're a person that's going into a nursing home yourself, needs to be under $2,000 total value. If you have a well spouse who's not in a facility, they call that the community spouse. And when I say facility, I'm talking about skilled nursing home.
Okay.
If the well spouse is in existence, then that well spouse can have about another $118,000 in countable assets. That's called the impoverishment rules. So now these numbers can be increased if there is a spouse by a court, if the facts of the case justify it.
Okay.
So those numbers can be. So you can see that someone who has a lot of assets is not going to be qualified, but it's not where you have to be totally broke.
Right.
If you've got a spouse. If you're a single person, pretty much yes. Less those exempt assets. The person in the nursing home then has a co-payment that Medicare calls share of cost, that they pay to the nursing home, and then Medicare pays the rest of the cost for the nursing home for that person.
Okay.
The share of cost is generally their entire income with a few carve-outs, a $35 personal allowance, and the money to pay their health insurance premiums for the most part. If they have a spouse, the spouse's income, any income into the couple that is in the spouse's name is considered the spouse's, and that's completely exempt as well. So now sometimes some of the ill spouse's money can go to the well spouse depending on the level of income between them. So there's co-payments, but you have to be pretty financially needy to get it.
Okay.
I do want to mention in this taping something that's very different. A new law in California was passed just this fall, and it is a change in the Medi-Cal recovery laws.
Okay.
In the past, when someone died, the Medi-Cal had a claim against everything that they owned, in essence, that they owned when they died, which might have been their half of that house that was an exempt for eligibility. It might have been the car and such. Generally, if the one exception to that is a retirement account, if it was left to an individual, not to their estate, then it continued to be safe from recovery. But the claim of the state would come in, and they wanted the money back for whatever they paid for it. The state has now, California has now decided that we're no longer going to recover against the home or against any assets that don't go through probate. So more than ever, we need to make sure that the assets are going to pass by some other form, such as a living trust or a beneficiary designation or joint tenancy, number of different ways, and that they don't go through probate, because those assets are the only thing that the state will be able to start recovering. This law becomes effective on January 1 of 2017, and it's for decedents who die on or after. There is a number of different pieces that and questions that the attorneys and that the law wasn't clear about, and so the attorneys that are my colleagues in the elder law field have been questioning, can we, is that going to cover certain things? So there's a lot still unknown about it, because it hasn't even become effective yet.
Right.
But it will be a massive change in our laws in California.
Okay. So why don't we talk for a few minutes about the VA benefits? And you're going to be surprised. Our time is going here, so.
Okay. All right. So we also have a slide for VA. So if we can get that up.
Okay.
Okay. So VA benefits. What I don't have on here is that, first off, you have to be a veteran or the surviving spouse of a veteran. The program we're talking about is the VA pension with aid and attendance. Aid and attendance is an extra that augments the money that you get under the pension program. If you are a veteran or a surviving spouse of a veteran, furthermore, you have to have served at least 1 day during a wartime period on active duty. So sometimes people were in the reserves and they never went on active duty. That doesn't count. They have to be on regular active duty, not just for training. And it has to be, that active duty has to be during one of the wartime periods, which primarily we're looking at World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and then the Gulf War. Gulf War actually started in 1990, and we're still officially at war.
Okay.
In that war, so it's ongoing.
That's 26 years.
It is, but we are in fact still at war, and it takes an act of Congress to declare that we're no longer in that wartime period. You also need to be financially needy. You have to be 65 or are disabled. Most of my clients are elders, and they are 65, and then you have to be financially needy. In essence, what you can sort of think in the current rules for VA is that if you have enough money in savings to pay for the deficit that you're incurring for your care for the rest of your life, then you don't need VA benefits. So it's an evaluation of your income, your medical and other expenses, and what your assets are. And if your assets are sufficiently low, then you can do that. Now, VA has proposed a rule change to make it more like Medicaid and Medi-Cal. So there's a definite dollar amounts and that you can have depending on whether you're single or a married person. But that hasn't been passed yet. We're expecting that those proposed regulations will come out in the spring of 2017 and possibly be passed by the summertime.
Okay. We only have about a little less than 3 minutes left.
Okay.
So just to
Well, there's some of the other things that you want to talk about in this.
Yeah, so maybe you can talk for a moment about this idea of asset-based long-term care insurance.
Sure.
And just try to hit real highlights.
Okay, so the asset-based long-term care, asset-based means that you're looking at an asset that you invest in an annuity or a life insurance product. It's usually purchased as a large single premium, but there are some other exceptions. And that then is the basis for paying for an insurance product. So you might have a long-term, a life insurance that you pay $200,000 for, and it's going to be $500,000 of life insurance. This is just one example.
Yeah.
And these products now, some of them, you buy them with this long-term care rider, and if you need long-term care before you die, then you can pull out that money at a certain amount per month. That was the life insurance benefit. So that $500,000 can come out as long-term care instead of life insurance. This is also available with certain annuities, so that if you want to, you can pull it out as regular income. And again, those have death benefits. So if you don't use it, you don't lose it. Right. It passes on to your family.
Right, and I think what you were pointing out is that you think that long term, this is going to be what people are going to be getting for long-term insurance, because the traditional policies are going to go away.
I think so, they will. The government has already passed some legislation called the Pension Protection Act of 2006 that allows someone who owns an annuity, a regular annuity, and say they bought it 15 or 20 years ago, they put $100,000 in it. With interest, it's grown to $200,000 now. Mm-hmm. And if they pull it out, they're going to have to pay income taxes on that gain, that $100,000. They can roll that over now, tax-free, into a Pension Protection Act qualified annuity with the long-term care rider on it, tax-free, and then pull out the money tax-free.
Okay. Time's up, folks. So hope we've gotten some good ideas from this, good information. Janice, thanks for joining me. See you next time on Financial Insider Weekly.